All right, be honest. When was the last time you looked at your Google Analytics dashboard? Do you have one at all? Or do you look at it all the time, several times a day, but you don't actually know what you're looking at? You know that it's something that you should be looking at, but you don't actually know what any of it means. Analytics are super intimidating for so many people, myself included at times. And I am someone who has spent a lot of time in analytics, but it can be kind of scary still or confusing. I'm not a math person, so it can feel like a bunch of numbers that you don't totally know how to interpret, but it's so important. As business owners, if we are not tracking what's working, we can't actually make informed decisions about what to do in our businesses. If you want to launch something or change your services or update your website or whatever it is that you want to do, you need to have the data to back it up. And so today, I wanted to speak with someone who really understands analytics and is able to explain it in a way that is actually understandable for us peasants who don't fully understand analytics. I have Amanda Webb joining me from Spiderworking. She is a Google Analytics specialist who works with small businesses to improve their digital marketing ROI. When you need to understand if your marketing is bringing sales or how to generate more sales, Amanda is the person you will turn to. So if you have found yourself intimidated by analytics or you've just avoided it like the plague, this is the episode for you. She does such a good job of breaking things down, making it really clear to understand, and she's just lovely to chat with. So let's dive in. Hey, beautiful human. You're listening to Bold Women in Business, the show where strategy meets soul in marketing, branding, and business growth. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, messaging and branding strategist, content queen, and compulsive meaning maker. Every week, I'll help you ditch the cookie cutter playbook and build a brand that actually sounds like you, sells like hell, and feels so damn good to show up for. Let's get bold. Hi, Amanda. Can you introduce yourself to our audience? Tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, what you help people with. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Amanda Webb. I feel like I was born with the right name, and I call myself a Google Analytics geek. I spend most of my days trying to work out how to do things in Google Analytics and doing that for clients so that they can basically see where they're wasting time and money on their marketing and what they could be doing better. So that's me, really. In marketing, 20 years, but only specialized in Google Analytics for about 4 years now. So I'm really loving it.
Nice. I'm so glad you made the joke about your last name because I was thinking it all day. I was like, when am I going to have the opportunity to say this joke? And she's probably heard it 7,000 times, so I'm not going to say it. So yeah, you broke that ice for me. Thank you. So to kick things off, let's start with the most basic question. Why do our analytics matter so much, right? Like if someone comes to me to build them a website, which is one of the things that I do for people, and we get their business out into the world and they never set up their Google Analytics or they set it up, but they never look at it again. Why does that matter? What's the problem there?
It happens a lot. I would say, please set up your Google Analytics, even if you don't look at it. That's going to be my first thing. It matters because, a website's a big investment. It's probably one of the biggest investments you're going to make in your business, or it should at least be one of the biggest investments you make. But a lot of people are just happy to leave it once it's set up. But there's so much that you can do. A website is never finished. And even though it could be set up to be a conversion machine, very often that doesn't happen when you first set it up. You need to do a lot of things to make that work for you. So it starts with your marketing in general. If you're sending people to your website, what are they doing when they reach your website? You can spend an awful lot of time, like I did. When I first started out just doing general digital marketing, I was obsessed with the visitors to my site, and that's what I looked at in my Google Analytics. And so I was all over SEO blog posts, and I was getting 50,000 people a month to my website in its peak. But the problem is with that, I was working really well on the SEO, but it wasn't bringing in the right people to my websites, and my offering wasn't clear, and there wasn't a clear process for people to buy from me. So once I got them to my site, nothing was happening. They just read and left. So it sounds really impressive, right? 50,000 people. Now I get like 500, which sounds embarrassing, but I make money from my website now. Those people actually convert. So I think that's one of the biggest values, really, is all that time and effort I was spending. I was writing 3 blog posts a week. I was really honing in on keywords that weren't necessarily relevant to my business just to get that traffic there. And I thought I was winning because I could see it grow over and over again. Whereas now I look at conversions, are people buying? Why aren't they buying? buying? Are they even finding my sales pages? When they go to my sales pages, do they find that complicated, or are they straight in there buying? Are people taking the expected route I expect them to take when they arrive on my website? All of these are things I can tweak, but I can only tweak that and I can only know the answers by looking at my analytics. And I think that's the same for everyone. You don't want to waste that amazing resource that you have, your website.
Yeah, and you just touched on something that's, I think, such a common misconception and ties into this idea of like vanity metrics versus maybe more actionable metrics. This comes up all the time on social media, obviously, where people are like, oh, I got X number of likes on my post. That means that I've done really well, or it's not working. 20 likes on my post. And I'm
It's
always
bizarre, isn't it?
It's super bizarre. The best thing is when someone's like, I got 200 views on my video. It doesn't even matter. What's the point? And I'm like, can you imagine if you were in a room with 200 people who actually took time out of their day to listen to what you had to say? Your business is doing really, really well, right? And it's more about reframing, are those quality leads versus not even leads, but just visitors that make us feel good, right? It feels good to say, I had 50,000 views a month, right? That's a big number to hang your hat on. But I think that sometimes people have a hard time wrapping their heads around that traffic isn't always the metric that we need to be looking at. It goes much deeper than that. Can you talk a little bit about like, what are the metrics that we should be looking at? What are the things that are the most valuable to really tell us that we are actually doing what is needed to be done?
Yeah, I suppose I want to firstly say, because you mentioned the term vanity metrics, nothing is necessarily a vanity metric if it's part of the story, and then anything can be a vanity metric. So if you're measuring revenue, for example, that's a vanity metric if you are spending more than you're earning. There's a whole lot of stuff there. So what should you be measuring? I'm going to talk about websites, but actually the process works for whatever you're using, whether you're using social media, whether you're using email marketing, whether you're using chatbots, WhatsApp, whatever it happens to be. But I have a framework, and that framework will tell you what to measure. Because for some people, the number of visitors you get to your site is important. If you're a creator, for example, you need to prove to the clients that you're working with that you have significant traffic to your site before it'll get there. I suppose before I go into the framework, I do want to give an honourable mention to a new metric that popped up in Google Analytics 4 that wasn't there in the old analytics, and that is engagement rate. And engagement rate means somebody visits your website and they stay there for 10 seconds or more, or they view more than one page, or they trigger a key event, which is Google's fancy term for a conversion. So they buy something, or they fill in your inquiry form, or one of those things, or a combination of any of those. So if I was to look at one metric, I would look at that one, because people aren't always going to buy the first time they come to your site, particularly if you're a service-based business. They're going to, spend a lot of time researching you, researching your competitors. So that gives you an indication. It's not the be all and end all, but it gives you an indication, are they a quality visitor? But also depending which pages they visit. I have old blog posts on my site, how to tweet longer than 140 characters, that still get lots of traffic, even though we've been able to tweet longer than 140 characters for at least 10 years.
Wow.
It's like, it's really bizarre. So you need to look at the pages they're looking at as well.
That's so interesting.
I know. It's just weird. And obviously that traffic's not doing anything for me, but I still have a little bit of an obsession about domain authority. And I've got quite, it's not a great domain authority, but a good domain authority. And I worry if I lose all those blog posts that I'll lose my domain authority. So I let them sit there and just ignore anyone that visits them.
Fair. It almost feels like you should optimize those pages to like have somewhere else to send them to that is maybe more useful to you.
Don't worry about tweeting than 140 characters. Learn about analytics. Yeah. So the framework is good because it works with anything, and it's not the same metrics for everyone. And the framework, I call it the ACE framework. It's got 2 E's at the end, ACEE. And the first bit is the most important bit. And that's really what I was missing all those years ago when I was just going after that traffic. And it was the questions you want your data to answer. So then the only question I wanted it to answer was how much traffic I was getting to my site, because that was my obsession. But that's not a business goal at all. So you need to really delve in. So it could be, why am I getting all this traffic to my website and none of it's converting? Which is a really big question that you can break down into smaller sections. Like, are the right people visiting my website? Are people visiting my sales pages on my website? If people visit the sales pages on my website, are they converting? And if not, what could be wrong? So they're the sort of questions that could really answer that big question. I think that's your starting point. And with those smaller questions, then you can go and search out the data that will answer those. And that's C for the collect phase, when you set up your custom reports that will be able to answer those specific questions. So you can just click into that and see the answer straight away and measure it over a period of time. Things like, I know this is a term that everyone hates, so watch out, which is UTM tracking links. They're really good at helping you understand which parts of your marketing are working. So that's a really big part of your collect phase. You can do things in Google Analytics like set up audiences of your best visitors, so you can see how they're interacting compared to people who are visiting your post about Twitter, which is long gone. So all of those things can be things you can do to help answer that question about the right people visiting your site. Then you get on to the first E, which is evaluate. You've collected all that data. Then you need to start comparing it. You need to start looking to see, oh, is that traffic from Instagram? It's small, but is it doing anything? Is it converting? Is it triggering engagement rate? Is it spending time on site, which is another metric that you can look at, compared to my search traffic? Now, what's that doing? Are they spending longer on site? Is the engagement rate higher? We've got AI traffic as well now, so you can compare to the traffic that you're getting from AI. All of those things can help inform your strategy a little bit more. And you might find, phew, relief, I love Instagram. So it's just as well, Instagram's delivering a really good engagement rate and triggering lots of key events. Phew, I hate TikTok. I don't know. None of those statements is true for me, Instagram or TikTok, but it can tell you where you can put your energy. And again, that was big for me because I used to do all the social media and I still have all those accounts, but I really lean into LinkedIn and I lean into my email marketing, and I can see the results of that now. In whenever I look at my analytics, I can see that the ones that are delivering the leads and the sales. And then the final stage, execute, is to choose one thing at a time that you're going to change, that you're going to do. So is that you're going to lean into your Instagram account? You can give it a month of that. You can go back and you can see, has that had an impact on those metrics that you were looking at? Or are you going to start an email marketing campaign? Or are you going to run Google ads? Or are you going to revamp your sales pages? Just don't do it all at once, because then you won't know what it was that actually worked and you're stuck in the same hamster wheel of doing all the things.
Ooh, I love this. I love a good framework. Also, I talk all the time on the podcast about really choosing our channels very, very carefully, right? Not spreading ourselves thin and putting all of our eggs in all the baskets, right? Really focusing on the channels that are going to be most effective for you. And I think that this is such a key piece of that puzzle, is like, how do you know if it's effective if you're not looking at the metrics to see if it's effective? Yeah, I think that this is such a key part of that. And I love this framework because it's so clear and ties to my next question, which is, why is this all so scary? It's really scary. People get so terrified of analytics. Like, how do you make that a little less scary for people?
I think it's because it's numbers. When you log into Google Analytics, it's just all this stuff and it's a bit overwhelming, particularly I think with Google Analytics 4. Nothing is where it used to be. If you were used to the old analytics at all and now you've got something completely different, it's just not visually pleasing either. You don't go, oh, look at all these shiny charts. It's all very blue. And I know I actually have this thing I call analytics space. I got a whole bunch of my friends actually to record themselves like looking at analytics and how it made them feel. It's that feeling that you've just like bitten into a lemon. I had to do this, but I don't like it. So I think that's one of the issues. Also, I think Google don't make things easy. Like, I love Google to bits. Don't get me wrong. I'm here because of Google. But they don't make their help articles. If you want help with something and you go to a Google help article, I call it Google-de-gook. It makes no sense. It's written by developers. You can tell it's written by developers.
Yep.
And even if you go and copy and paste that and put it into AI and ask them to simplify it, it still doesn't make any sense. And I think that's part of the problem as well. So I see it as like part of my mission to simplify the whole thing for people. And when I'm delivering my training, I try and keep it as straightforward as possible. Never going to reach everyone, because I know some people are still going to be like, no, this is numbers and analytics. I don't want it. But I do try and make it as simple as possible. And I do get that feedback from people as well, that they start to understand what's going on when I explain it rather than having to consult those articles.
Yeah.
And it really is, there's a lot of data there. You could be be, because the reverse of analytics space is the rabbit hole, which I used to go down all the time. Like I'd end up in analytics and hours later I'd have looked at everything and thought, oh, that's really exciting, but I didn't really have any insight. So that's the opposite of analytics space, but that can happen too.
How often should people be looking at their analytics?
So there is no strict rule. I'm launching at the moment. So I've looked about 35 times today already. That happens, right? Because, oh, I've just sent an email. Is anyone on my site? Oh, look, there's somebody at the checkout page. Oh. That happens and you can't help that. And if you are putting together some sort of campaign or plan, you do want to look regularly. I think the first thing is to set yourself some goals, 2 sets of goals, some goals for what you want to achieve and some goals that will tell you, actually, I'm not getting anywhere near it. I need to try a new tactic. So kind of having bottom goals as well as top goals, I think is important. So if you set that whole campaign up with that in mind and you're running it and it's a short-term campaign, you're going to be looking daily, right, to know what's been happening. I suppose it's worth pointing out at this time as well, in Google Analytics 4, you can see real-time data. You can see when someone's on your site right now. But after that, it goes into a hole and doesn't appear for another 24 hours in your reports. So even though it's me looking at the real-time reports now, I'm not going to get any real insights until they appear in my reports. Yeah, if it's a short-term campaign every day, if it's a longer-term campaign at least once a week to see if you're having impact with the whatever you're implementing. And if you're not running anything specific, I have a monthly checklist of metrics that I look at to see is what I'm doing working, basically. So once a month minimum. And I always have a day that I call measurement day, which is usually the second or the third, depending on how the weekend falls, because I don't work weekends. I will wait until a few days after the first of the month so that I've got that full month's worth of data, the whole month, because remember, those reports aren't populating for at least 24 hours. So if I did it on the first of the month, I'd be missing the last day of the month's information. So I have that date set in my diary and it goes off and it annoys me. And I go, I have to go and do this thing now, but I actually really enjoy it when I do.
Right. It's like one of those things that you resist. And then when you do it, you're very happy that you did it because you enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like looking daily or weekly or whatever when I haven't got a set list of things I need to look at, but it always seems like it's going to be hassle. And actually, because the way I've set up my reports is very quick for me to get the data I need because I followed my own system.
Quick pause. Can we talk about content for a second? If you're staring at a blank screen more often than you're hitting post, it might be because you're trying to create content that doesn't fit your actual strengths. It's kind of like wearing someone else's jeans. They may look super good on your friend, but you put them on and they are not comfortable and they just aren't doing your butt any favors. That's why I created the Content Marketing Power Type Quiz. It's free and it helps you figure out the kind of content you were made to create. The kind of content that feels natural, sustainable, and actually connects with your people in a way that lights you up. In just 45 seconds, or maybe even 30 if you're quick about it, you're going to find out your power type and get custom recommendations to make content feel easier and more effective. Head on over to honeybeebold.com/quiz. That's HONEYBEBOLD.com/quiz. Take it and then DM me your result because I kind of need to know. All right, let's dive back into the episode. Coming back to kind of what you were talking about, the Google Gook, right? Do you think that anyone can learn this, or is it something that really needs to be relegated to the pros? And obviously, as a pro yourself, when does it make sense for someone to DIY this versus outsourcing it?
I think it's a very big thing, Google Analytics. So to do all the basic stuff, I'd say 90% of marketers are going to be able to do it. There are going to be the few that just find numbers too much. But I'd say 90% of people will be able to do the basic stuff. And in fact, in the resource that I'm giving you, there's a link to finding out how to customize a report. And that's the magic. Once you know how to customize a report, you can do everything yourself. But it gets more complicated. There's a whole lot of complex stuff. For example, I've been working on a client account that I thought I'd be finished in a week. I think we're on month 2 now. Because it's so complicated, so many moving parts to the website and apps and tools and bits that we're just struggling to get to talk to each other. But that's a much bigger site. You know, they're getting thousands of, maybe not 50,000, but they're getting thousands of visitors a month to their site. We just need to make sure everything is tracking properly. I enjoy that. It's complicated, but I enjoy it because I'm learning something new. And I think for most marketers, they're not going to have that issue. They're going to have something way more straightforward.
Right. Right. And if someone wants to kind of get started managing this on their own, is it the custom reports that you would say, like, that's the place to start? Is first start setting up your custom reports, figure out what it is that you want to track, and then follow the resource that you're going to give us to actually set those custom reports up?
Yeah, I mean, find your way around first. And I've just said about Google Gook, but this is a really good training. They have like a Google Analytics course that's free to take, and it's all videos and two very friendly people. You don't have to do the whole thing. You could just do the first module and that will take you through. I have a course as well, but it's more than that. This is a great starter course from Google themselves. I would do that because that will familiarize you with what's going on.
I've done the course and it is very good. It gives you the basics for sure. It's not going to make you a Google Analytics expert, but it definitely gives you the basics. I think I said to you when we chatted before, I know enough about analytics to be dangerous, but not so much more beyond that. So I know my way around GA4, but not much beyond that. So
yeah, so then I would get into customizing, but I wouldn't get into customizing until you kind of know where all the bits are before you start messing with it. I think that's the difference. The old analytics that everyone loved, if you remember, it had like about 200 menus down the side.
Yeah.
And I do worry that Google Analytics is going to go there, Google Analytics 4, because they do keep bolting things on. But there is less, but you can customize your entire experience. So you can create your own set of reports that tell you exactly what you want to know without having to go and find the report that's down there, click 3 times, fill in this thing here, and finally you'll get your results. So customization really is at the heart of Google Analytics 4. That's what I prefer about Google Analytics 4, is that I can make my own experience out of it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I definitely spent a lot more time in Google Analytics in the old version. And it's like one of those things, like when they rearrange the grocery store and you're like, I don't know where anything is anymore. And like, so those first few months when GA4 came out, I was like, I don't even want to be here because it's too scary. But now I've learned my way around. And I do see that it's a more streamlined experience, but you have to know how to set things up properly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I say, get it installed on your website. That is the most important thing. Number one thing, even if you never do any of those or are not even planning on doing those customizations, it means it's collecting data, which means that you can use that data in the future. Even if you don't want to look now, you can look in 6 months' time, you can look in a year's time. It's collecting for you.
Yeah. What are the biggest mistakes you see people make when they're setting up their analytics on their own? They're DIYing it and they come to you and they're like, I don't know what to do with this mess. Like, what are the biggest messes that you're seeing that, or the biggest mistakes you're seeing?
There's a few. So firstly, there's a thing when you're setting up your Google Analytics account called enhanced measurement, and it's switched on by default. And that's really how Google Analytics 4 works. The old Analytics was based on a page view, whereas Google Analytics 4 is based on events, of which a page view is an event, but it also registers things like if somebody scrolls your page. It also registers clicks. If you do an outbound click, it also registers lots of things that I can't think of right now, obviously, but there's a whole lot of things that kind of build a picture of how someone's using your website. But some people, when they see that, they go, oh, that looks like, no, I'm switching that off. And that means you're not getting good data at all. So that's the first thing. You can switch that back on. You know, it's easy to do, but to check that. The second thing is, particularly on WordPress, this happens a lot, is you've installed it like 5 times because you've got all these different plugins and every time it's asking for your Google Analytics code. Now, thankfully, Google Analytics have kind of copped onto this. So if you've got a new enough Google Analytics 4 account, it's dealt with that. It knows that all these are coming from the same site. But if you've got an older account, if you've had your account a few years, it could be double tracking, quadruple tracking. I actually looked at a website the other day where they had 4 tags on the site for the same tag, but installed 4 times. So that meant every time one person visited their website, it looked like 4 people visited their website. If you ever want to rig your numbers, that's how to do it.
Feel really good about yourself.
Exactly. There is actually a setting in your Google Analytics within the tag where you can say ignore duplicate instances of the tag. So that means, I would try and remove them anyway, but that will fix it straight away. So that happens so much. What else am I seeing? I see a lot of mistakes coming in. There is another setting, and this isn't a mistake, and this is one I would get everyone to look at. So it's really hard to describe where it is when we're not looking at analytics. But by default, Google Analytics stores event data, anything people do on your website, basically clicking, scrolling, viewing a page, watching a video, whatever it happens to be. But it stores automatically event data for only 2 months, which actually doesn't affect your standard reports so much. But in the future, if you want to go and do a year-on-year comparison in the more complex reporting that they do, you'll find that you don't have the data there because it's only got 2 months worth. So where do we find that? We find that in admin. if you go into the admin section.
I'm
and
doing this while we talk because I want to see if I'm
So
okay.
admin's the little wheel at the bottom left-hand side. And then you've got kind of like pictures of things you're looking for on the right-hand column. You might need to scroll down. There'll be a picture of a magnet and it will say data retention. And if you click into that, you'll see there's two sorts. I think there's event data always set to 2 months by default by Google. There's no reason not to switch that to the maximum, which is 14
Yeah,
months.
I had it set to 2 months. Okay.
Everyone does.
Now I just fixed it. Thank you. We
Yeah.
did some real-time fixing.
So from now on, it's not going to backdate, unfortunately, but from now on, it's going to keep collecting. So you'll have as much data as you can work with in 14 months' time.
Great.
Or 12
Okay.
months, because it's already got 2 months worth.
Yes, thank you. If you could give just one simple leaky website fix. So maybe let's actually first define like a leaky website, and we've touched on it, but how that plays into the analytics conversation. And then let's give our top fix for a leaky website.
So yeah, leaky website is you'll have a path that people follow through the website to either purchase directly from you or to fill in your inquiry form or even to join your email list, depending what your big goal is. And people will be tootling along and they won't get to the end. So which part is it that they're dropping out? That's your leak. And there's reports that you can do. And these are the more complex reports I was talking about. And I feel like I've scared you off, but actually they're not that complicated, particularly if you're e-commerce, because these are kind of set up for e-commerce. But in the explore section, so you've got your standard reports. That's like a little graph icon. You'll see that. Underneath that, there's kind of like a little speech bubble with a zigzaggy line inside it. That's your Explore reports. And in there, there's two reports I love. And the first one is Path Explore. And what Path Explore does, it takes a little bit of setting up, but you can see when somebody starts on your website, what page do they start on and what do they do next? What page do they go to next and next and next and next and next? And you can follow that most common journey. That's the one I would always focus on all the way through. And you'll see people aren't doing what you expected them to. You'll see that, you thought they'd go from your homepage to your services page. No, they're going from your homepage to some random page you didn't even remember you had on your website. This happens to me. That's why I'm saying it. So that's a really interesting report to look at. You can even start that from your key event, whatever you've decided is the important thing people do on your website. So if it's fill in your inquiry form, you can start with that and work backwards to where they started as well. So that's a really interesting one to look at. I'm slightly obsessed by that. And I love that when I show it to people, every single person's like, wow, that's so cool. And the other one is a funnel report. So if you know which pages you want people to visit in order to buy from you. So maybe looking at any page on your website, then looking at a specific page on your website, and then you've got a thank you page maybe when they sign up. Or maybe it's a calendar booking page, and then you've got a thank you page for booking that. You can put all of those pages one by one in the funnel, and that will show you where people are dropping out of the process. I'm not really an e-commerce person, but this really works for e-commerce because you'll often find loads of people putting things in the cart and they're not checking out, which is common, right? Because we're all online shoppers. We do that, don't we? All the time.
Yeah, all the time. And then you get those emails from the company that say, hey, I saw you have something in your cart. Did you want to buy that? And then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's pretty powerful data for sure.
So that's one thing you can do. You can set up like some sort of automation that will send an email to the customer if they're logged in, or you can start looking at why are they putting it in the cart? Is it because maybe your delivery information isn't clear? They don't know how much they're going to pay in delivery, so they have to go to the cart to find that out, in which case that's a false add to cart. That's no good to you. So you can make sure that's clear on your page, or make sure that if you're doing clothing that you've got a really good sizing guide, or you've got dimensions for any product that you're sending. Anything that people need to know before they buy, before it goes into the cart, is really good to have on your page. Reviews, customer reviews, because maybe they go, oh, I want to buy this, but is it any good? I think a site that's really good at this is, and I buy lots of clothes from them, so it must be good. I don't buy much online, is Disturbia. I don't know if you've come across them. They're kind of like an alternative clothing brand.
I don't know if we have them in the US.
Have a look, because I know they've got a European site and a UK site.
Well,
so
I'm going to have to look them up.
Yeah, but I think they've got one of the best e-commerce sites that I've seen. They do that thing where if you've got something in your cart, they'll come and tell you. Or if you click through from an email to look at a particular product, they'll go, hey, we saw you were looking at this. Do you want to buy it? They don't get me with that because I'm stubborn. But it's nice to be reminded of things I want to buy sometimes. I think they've got a really great site. It's definitely worth looking at if you're an e-commerce business.
I do jujitsu, and there's a jujitsu clothing brand, like they make training gear. And every time I go to their website just to look, I don't even put anything in the cart, and I leave, I get an email or a text from them. So they must have just the most sophisticated reporting setup, because they just know when I'm on their site, I'm browsing, I'm looking at something. So yeah, I think that you can tell the companies that have that set up really well and the companies that don't.
Yeah. And I think for e-commerce, usually your margins are really tight. So they really do have to work on those things. Whereas I think we have a bit more leeway as service-based businesses. You know, we don't need to get 200 sales a day.
Right, right.
I do 2 a month and I'm happy. So it's like really honing in on getting that working and all the systems. And I think as well for service-based business, your email list is even more important because it's usually a longer sales process. That's the metric you're going to get outside your analytics, is how many people are signing up. But you can use your analytics to find out which pages are they signing up for, which lead magnets are the most popular. All of those things can be really helpful.
Where does A/B testing come into play?
Now, it's really tough to do this for small traffic website. And now we know that I am a small traffic website because it's hard to get statistical significance. So I wouldn't be wanting to do anything unless I had 100 results at least to work with. And like I say, I'm a service-based business. I'm not getting 100 people signing up a month. I was going to say it would be nice, but it wouldn't. I don't know where I'd do all the work.
You're one person.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the time when we see people talking about A/B testing, they're talking about changing the color of a button or the text on a button. So instead of that, and I actually did a really interesting podcast interview myself with a guy called Usman Qureshi, who it's all about, if you've got a low traffic website, just look at optimizing the page in general rather than that one little thing, which is the exact opposite of what you're told, right? I'm saying do one thing at the time, but I'm also saying you could probably revamp your whole sales page without having to do it a little bit at a time. Or, you know, at least revamp half of it. Don't be messing around with a button, because the difference it's going to have on a low traffic website is going to be so small, it's going to be insignificant.
Right.
So A/B testing works if you've got a lot of traffic. You would have 2 different versions of your page, one with a green button, one with a red button. Which one converted best? Great, we'll keep the red button. Then you'd do another test where you'd have one that had a red button with a certain text on it, one that had another red button with a different sort of text. Great, we're keeping that one. So you tweak one tiny thing at a time. That's just not going to work for a low traffic site.
Right.
So it really depends on what you've got coming in.
Yeah, I think when you said don't change everything at once, it's more like kind of the categories of things, right?
Yes.
If you decide to go all in on Instagram for a month and test that out and see how it's going, don't also change, you know, everything on your website at the same time.
Yes,
You're not going to be able to see what's working. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Any last advice or thoughts or wisdom that you want to share with us before we wrap up?
I'm doing Google Analytics now, but my background is in marketing for 20 years, digital marketing for 20 years. So I kind of know things that you need to do there. One, they're going to make your measurement a lot easier. So I kept talking about thank you pages. Please, please, please have a thank you page. When somebody signs up for something, all the form software that you have on your website has a little button that you can tick, redirect to another page when they fill in this form. Please do that, because not only is it easy to measure when somebody lands on that thank you page, you know that they've achieved something, but also you've got that opportunity to keep them on site and get to know you a little bit more. So I suppose that's always one. Secondly, again, and I'm sure all your listeners are really smart, so they're probably doing this already, but if you are a service-based business, each service you offer is like a different product. So you need a product page for each of those services, not just one page that has them all on. So my GP, for example, I'm a woman of a certain age, so I was looking for their menopause services. And basically, they've just got one long page about their diabetes, their blood tests, their children's whatever, their sexual health screening. They've got all this stuff. And then at the bottom, they've got menopause. But even when I get there, there's no individual button for me to click to get the menopause offer or to go and look and find out more about it. And even then, when I rang, they didn't know what I was talking about. So please have a different page for each of your services and make sure your staff know what each of your services is as well.
Yeah. I've experienced that many times. It's not a good user experience at all. So I totally know what you're talking about.
And it's not good for measurement. You want to know, if you have all those different services, you know which ones are most popular because they're the ones that people are looking at. and you know which pages are doing best, which ones are converting best and which aren't. So you can start working on the ones that aren't and see why.
Yeah.
So many reasons.
Yeah, for sure. You have so generously created a special resource page for my listeners. Where can people find that and what can they expect when they find this resource page?
So I'd love if you do use LinkedIn. That is my main platform. And you'll find everything else about my website as well. It's not like one of those landing pages where you can't navigate elsewhere. But I've got that tutorial on customizing reports in Google Analytics, which I think is crucial. You'll find that right at the top. I'm trying to remember what else I threw in there because I was going, I must do this before the call. I've also got a Google Analytics phrase book, which is basically all the terminology you'll come across in Google Analytics. And I've tried to simplify that a little bit so you can get that as well. So that's there. And some details about my Google Analytics beginners course as well.
Great.
But do the Google one first. I think it's great.
Great. And we will have the links to everything in the show notes so everyone can go connect with Amanda, go check out the resource. Definitely a wealth of information. And I just really appreciate your time and wisdom. And I actually fixed something in real time on my analytics. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, me too. And thanks so much for having me. I always love an opportunity to talk about analytics, as you can tell.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you got as much out of that episode as I did, because I did learn so many things. I love that framework that Amanda provided to just really break down what are we trying to do when we're looking at our analytics, when we're tracking things. What's the goal here? And that's really what it comes down to. The key thing, if you take one thing away from this conversation, is that traffic to your website is not necessarily the most important metric that you should be looking at. Conversions, making sure that people are taking the actions that you want them to, that is what's most important. Your website exists to drive sales to your business. That is why it exists. If it's not doing that, it's probably not optimized for that. Yes, you do need to see, are you bringing in enough traffic to even have a chance of converting people? That's super important. And if you don't have that, you're probably not sharing your content on the right platforms in the right ways, all of that to drive traffic back to your website. But if you have enough traffic coming in and it's just not converting, that's when you need to really take a look under the hood and see, where are things dropping off? What is not optimized about my website? How can we improve the situation so that I actually am optimizing for conversions? There was such good information this episode. I really felt like Amanda demystified analytics in a way that I haven't heard so many people do. So really loved it. And I'm excited to see you back here next week for another great episode. All right, beautiful human. That's a wrap on this episode of Bold Women in Business. This episode was brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmukulele. But before you go, don't forget to take the Content Marketing Power Type quiz at honeybebold.com/quiz, because when your content fits your power type, showing up gets way easier and your marketing actually starts working for you. Until next time, stay bold, stay kind, and keep doing it your way.